Our basement is filled with VHS tapes. Originally, I kept them in a box under the old TV set, yet over the years I have developed quite the collection. There's shelves of the stuff now, uncountable black boxes filled with mystery. Usually the faint smell of plastic that envelopes our basement soothes me. It reminds me that I'm not at work. It's the scent of my cherished hobby, of nostalgia. Usually the faint smell of plastic in the basement calms me, yet this time it does not. The dog skitters past her legs, jumps on the couch and curls up into comfort.
Isn't Betty so precious?
My wife fawns, as she sits next to the dog. Her slender fingers quickly find the magic spot behind the ear. Betty's eyes flutter and close.
Aw, look at her. She's already asleep. What a beautiful princess. She must be so tired from the dog park.
Yeah, I say, still standing on the stairs. She did run a lot. I walk down the steps but stop on the last one. Hey, I say, how about we just go upstairs and watch something streamable? It's a better TV. I can make some popcorn.
Betty, do you want to go? No? You're too comfortable?
The dog barely opens her eyes. She's not moving. Neither is my wife.
Also,
She says to me,
Dr. Shipman said we should engage with each other's hobbies. Dog park in the morning, VHS in the evening, and we agreed.
I don't get off the creaky step. I keep searching for a way to get my wife upstairs.
You said there's no porn on those tapes, Ryan.
She says, with more than a glint of accusation. There's no porn, I say. I just like collecting mysterious VHS tapes. It's the truth, I'm reasonably certain. I haven't seen half the tapes in my collection. It's not nudity I'm scared of my wife finding. There are more disturbing things lingering on those old tapes than porn.
What about this one?
She says, sliding a tape out of the shelves.
Professor Willow's Amazing Dogshow. That sounds fun.
I pick up the sleeve. Aside from the neatly written title, there's no indicator of what's on the tape. It's a VHS-C, I say. A home movie. Anything could be on this thing. Could be disturbing.
Well, if it's disturbing, we'll turn it off.
She says, carefree. Then her brow furrows.
Come on, Ryan. I don't get this VHS obsession hobby, but I want to try. We promised Dr. Shipman we would, and there's no point in going to therapy if we're going to ignore the homework.
I feel no more assured, but I submit. With a staccato of clicks, the VCR eats up the tape. A faint image sharpens on the old television set. We're in some expansive, dark warehouse. There's a sparse audience of silhouettes that shuffles before the camera. In the center of the warehouse, lit up by a handful of industrial lights, stands a tall, bald man in a lab coat.
Friends, comrades, and esteemed colleagues, I have gathered you here for another exposition of the research I have tirelessly worked on.
The man does not speak loudly. The barren warehouse amplifies his words enough.
Professor Kamer's fertilizer is indeed impressive. It will optimize the land and provide plentiful breeding space for the hybrids. Truly the scientific achievement of the decade. But now it is time for you to see the greatest achievement of the century.
There's a religious zeal behind the man's words. The warehouse, the scientist's identity, the hybrids he speaks of. It all picks at my hunger for mystery. Yet I still fear what the tape might reveal. I fear how my wife will react.
Bring me the dog.
The scientist yells into the shadows. My wife watches the fuzzy warehouse scene with a deep confusion, yet the moment the dog is mentioned, she sits upright. When the said dog is trotted up on a leash from the darkness, a smile spreads across her lips.
Look, Ryan, it looks just like Betty.
She squeals.
Betty, can you see? That puppy looks just like you.
Betty opens her eyes, but the screen is of no interest to her. She, instead, looks up at my wife in expectation of more ear scratches. When Betty gets them, her eyes slowly shut again.
Oh, how we have tamed the wild wolf.
The scientist proclaims, as he takes the leash from his assistant.
Man has molded Canis lupus to be smaller and meek and friendly. He has taken prey and turned it to ally, to guardian, to companion.
As if to attest to its amicable nature, the dog at the scientist's feet raises its paw.
Man has worked for millennia to transform Canis lupus to his needs. Yet he has not done enough.
The scientist holds the leash far away from his body as if seized by sudden disgust. The assistant takes the dog, silently marching it into the darkness. The man in the lab coat doesn't speak again until they are out of sight.
Man has tried to alter the genealogy of canines through selective breeding, yet this process is far too slow. To mate, to gestate, to raise, to mate again, this is science fit for a monkey. To mate, to gestate, to raise, to mate again, this requires decades, which we do not have. This requires time, which we cannot afford. No, to truly tame the nature of the canine, one must strike at its genome.
Even in the fuzzy resolution of the age tape, I can see it. A flash of static beyond the lights. Something materializes from out of thin air in the darkness.
Friends, comrades, and colleagues, let it be my honor to present to you specimen ND059.
There's no applause in the audience when the thing walks into the light. There is but curious shuffling and a single strained cough. The creature on screen is most definitely not the product of natural evolution.
Oh my god.
She whispers, getting her face closer to the screen.
It's adorable!
The creature is, to my wife's credit, cute. Discomfortingly so. It has the general form of a puppy, yet is bigger than our full-grown Springer. Its eyes are like big saucers filled with innocence, and one of its pointed ears hangs inside out. It looks like a dog. It looks like a dog, but it's not.
Is that real?
My wife says, her forehead almost touching the screen.
This can't be a real thing, right? It has to be animated or something.
I don't need to take a closer look. My sellers are reliable. I know my way around image quality. I know the tape is legit, yet I still meet her face by the screen. VHS-C, I say. Putting any altered footage on it would require a lot of work with the tape. Too much work. Also, see these? Those are tracking lines. They show up on age tapes. I guide her hand, tracing it along the distortions. When I let go, her slender fingers continue to run along the tracking lines. Her soft breath fogs up a bit of the screen. For a moment, a very brief moment, I find myself thankful to Dr. Shipman.
Canines have evolved to be loved by man.
The scientist on the television preaches.
They have the eyes of babies. Their cries provoke our genetic similes. Nature lured the canine with treats to appeal to us. Hybrid ND059 is a mere tug of the leash.
A growl arises from the couch. Betty's eyes are open and her head is low. She doesn't like what she's seeing on the screen. My wife scratches her behind the ear, but the dog's rumble doesn't subside.
Those that do not tend to the land, those that are called to higher purpose and have to spend their days away from life beyond their concern, they need these ties to nature. To the reminder that life is, in its core, simple. Dogs have long served this role in urban societies. When their time comes, hybrid ND059 will take up this labor.
Off in the darkness, there's another brief flash. The silhouette it produces is considerably bigger. Betty's displeasure at the screen grows. She bares her teeth at the hulking form in the shadows. The scientist, this Professor Willow, he once again stays silent until his assistant has left the stage. There's a commotion among the audience. A group of silhouettes moves past the camera to sit further away. They've noticed the creature in the darkness. They're scared of it. Hey, how about we go upstairs, I suggest. We can check out the new season of Yellow Jack.
Shh, I want to know what happens next.
She turns around, but she doesn't look at me. Instead, she holds up a single finger to the dog as if it were a saber.
You too, Betty. Shush, I'm watching something. Be a good girl.
Yet the canine was never just a simple companion. No, he served as protector, as hunter, as the right hand of the law. The dog has helped feed us and keep order, yet its instincts are dull. Its body is frail compared to that which science can birth. Friends, comrades, colleagues, I present to you specimen OD041.
Betty's growls immediately break out into terrified barks. My wife repels from the screen.
What is that?
She yells. It looks like a mole rat. A mole rat with bulging muscles and the snout of a wolf and eyes that scream violence. The assistant does not lead the beast on a leash. He is dragged behind it.
Ryan? That can't be real, right? That thing is not real.
It isn't, I say, trying to think straight past Betty's shrieking barks and the horror on the screen. Probably a prank. Someone just used AI to make that Happens all the time. From the television, Professor Willow rambles on about security forces and the inherent handicap of canines not being able to bite through steel. My wife is scared and the dog is going nuts, but there's still a part of me that's drawn to the tape. I'm curious about what else Professor Willow has in store. When his speech finishes, the abhorrent mass of flesh and muscles let off the stage. Another flash of static crackles from the edge of the screen. A flame lights up the darkness. I grab the remote. My marriage is more important than the mystery. Television broke, I say. Betty's barks fade, but she doesn't sit down. My wife's eyes stay with the blank screen, but eventually they turn to me. She doesn't believe me. It's an old television. Sometimes it just turns off on its own, I say. How about we go upstairs and we'll make some popcorn and watch a show? Yellow Jackets has a second.
Ryan, was that real?
Of course not, I say. Those things don't exist.
But you said it was a VHS tape, and you said there was no way to fake footage on those.
I search for words. I search for something that is not a direct lie, something that I can explain to Dr. Shipman in private next week and still feel like I was being reasonably truthful. I search for words, but none come. Of course it's fake, I lie. Somebody must have taken digital footage and put it onto a tape. Happens all the time. Most of these tapes are probably altered.
Then why do you watch them?
For the mystery, to figure out if they're a prank or not, I say. But this one definitely is. I'm certain of it, I add when her worry doesn't fade. We sit there in silence, surrounded by the faint smell of plastic. My wife looks around the room, worried, considering what other horrors her husband might be storing beneath the house. For a moment I fear she'll say something hurtful about my collection, but Betty saves the day. The Springer spins on the couch once, twice, thrice. Then, with a low grumble, she rests on her paws.
Oh, honey, you didn't like that tape, did you?
My wife soothes our inhuman child. Bet you she liked the dog park a lot more, I add.
Did you like the dog park better, Betty? Yes, you do, but you also like the scratches, right?
My wife's fingers find the magic spot behind Betty's ear. Soon enough, the dog's eyes close and her grumbles turn amicable.
You said something about Yellow Jackets?
Yeah, second season is out. Want to watch it upstairs?
Do we want to watch Yellow Jackets, Betty?
At the mention of her name, the dog gets up and scatters up the stairs. My wife follows her not long after. I leave the basement as well. She insists we watch a season 1 recap before we watch the show. I don't find it necessary, but once we start watching the show proper, I'm happy for it. I would have scarcely recalled any of the Yellow Jackets if I wasn't given a reminder. We watched 3 episodes cuddled up on the couch with the dog. Then, without the dog, we cuddle in bed. We don't make love, but she falls asleep in my arms. As her breaths slow and her quiet snoring begins, I consider how good Dr. Shipman's advice was. I consider how likely we are to stay together. I come away from these questions feeling optimistic. Yet once the dog curls up by her feet and I'm sure she's asleep, I sneak out of bed. I go back to the basement. I go back to finish the rest of the tape. The third hybrid, which the professor reveals is the worst of all. It looks like a dog. It looks more like a dog than any of the other amalgamations, but it defies the laws of physics. Atop the creature's back, spreading to its tail, there sits a steady bright flame. When the creature opens its mouth, boiling spit fizzles from its mouth. Professor Willow calls the creature specimen FA008, yet its scientific designation scarcely masks the fact that it is a beast of hell. To me, it is a creature which should not exist, yet undoubtedly does. I watched the tape multiple times. I listened to Professor Willow's strange ramblings about the hybrids and the final century and the new world that we will build. His zeal, the fear of the audience, the undeniable nature of the creatures which he presents, it all terrifies me. Once I've viewed the tape a dozen times, I go up to the living room and boot up my laptop. I assure myself that the tape came from a reliable seller. I trace it back to the estate sale of a retired biology lecturer. According to the records, he was in possession of multiple tapes when he died. I search further. 2 tapes from the estate auction pop up, open to bidding. Professor Willow's Underground Highway and Professor Willow's Aquatic Expedition. The bidding amounts are high. I start to check our bank accounts on how much I can offer up. Before I make a bid, however, I hear her voice from upstairs. My wife is looking for me. Soon enough, Betty taps down the stairs to locate me. I close the laptop, but I bookmark the listings. I want to know more about this Professor Willow. I want to indulge further into the mystery of the hybrids. Desperately, I want to plunge myself back into the dark world of VHS tapes, but I follow the dog up the stairs. Dr. Shipman was right. This marriage can be saved.
And so concludes another episode of the United People's Institute series. Next Thursday comes a tale of burnt down hotels, work-life balance, and jazz, read by As the Raven Dreams. If you can't wait a full week for another episode, drop by patreon.com/MikeJLanger for the full 20-story season and a bunch of other early and bonus content. Also, if you haven't heard the first season of the United People's Institute series, there's a big old jumbo video of it down in the pinned comment for binge consumption. Big thanks to Zach Sloka, Tati, and Nikolai Stanislav-Shevchik for lending their voices to the tale, and to Repulsive for providing the spooky tunes. If you made it this far into the video, tell me about the last VHS tape you watched. Who knows? If you're kind and rewind, maybe a bit of your viewing pleasure will worm its way into another story on the channel. And finally, as usual, a huge thanks to the patrons for making the show possible. Big ol' thanks to Bob Condor, Dante Kincaid, Matt, Joyce, Mr. CreepyPasta, Kus, Christopher Barunda, Dying Sun, Charlie Cooper, Paul Evans, Quad Pills, Shion, and Larry V. If you want to join these illustrious scientific minds, drop by patreon.com/MikeJLanger. That's it from me this week. Hope everyone is safe, sane, and healthy out there.